Okay, recording just started.
Great, thanks. So I'll call the meeting to order. This is the August 25, 2020 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission for the town of Fairfield. We have, thank you everyone for joining us under the circumstances remotely via the WebEx. We have a relatively few items on the agenda, but we should take as long as we need. We're starting at 6:30, about an hour earlier than our normal time. We will observe the curfew that we would have observed under ordinary circumstances, and so that puts us at 10 p.m. So if we're not otherwise finished by then, which quite frankly I hopefully we are, then we will adjourn the meeting for the next time. For those members of the public that are here that wish to be heard in the public hearing, which was continued from last time, we just ask that you log your names in the chat box to Ms. Harrigan, and we'll call those folks in order to be heard. Any other sort of operational general announcements before I get into the agenda?
No, I think it's good. Just a reminder to the members that because only the recording of this, the audio recording only, we're not recording the video, you need to just make sure you're identifying yourself every time you speak for the record. And this is Jim Wendt for the record. And I failed to do so before I spoke, so here we go.
That's good.
An object lesson right there.
Very good. Well, back over to Wagner here as chair. I'll call the first item as the meeting minutes from July 28, 2020. And again,
Commissioner Francis, move to approve.
Great. Second, I've got that. Thank you. So a motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan with a second by Commissioner Francis. Commissioner Noonan, anything to comment on those?
I didn't see anything.
Very good. Neither did I. Commissioner Francis? Okay.
No, I don't have any changes.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have any comments or other questions about the minutes? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Well, I'm going to say on you.
Yeah, so this is a challenge. Hopefully nobody's opposed to the minutes, but if anybody's opposed, you got to raise your hand or make some noise so that I can make sure that I note that when we're voting. So hearing no no's, any abstentions? Okay, then the minutes are adopted unanimously. Thanks, everyone. The next item is compliances. 167 Old Post Road in Southport, zoning compliance application of Mark Howitt to construct a new enclosed stairwell in an existing office building in the Design Industrial District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Wendt for the record. The subject property here is in the Design Industrial District as it states on the agenda. The building on this premises was a dwelling that was built in the late 1800s, was converted to office use in 1985. The current owner applicant wishes to build an 11-foot by 13-foot, 3-story stairwell, as the existing front interior stair is not to code. There are 21 existing parking spaces on this site, which included in that 21 spaces are 3 garage spaces. The existing building at 4,400 square feet requires 18 parking spaces for office use. 2 spaces will be eliminated for the footprint of this stairwell, and 1 new space is proposed to be created for a net loss of 1 space, resulting in 20 parking spaces. And again, 18 are required. The consideration here for the commission is whether the addition of this ingress-egress stair constitutes an expansion of the existing office use. We've had a couple of similar applications whereby we've had elevator vestibules approved, one for the medical office building at the Brick Walk, and another for the Webster Bank building at 1177 Post Road. In both of those cases, it wasn't considered to be gross space for the purpose of the parking calculation, and it was done as a zoning compliance application. And so here it's a stairwell rather than an elevator vestibule. And you did have we did send you electronically the plans, and that's all I have at this point, and I can answer any questions anybody might have.
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple. Can I get a motion so that we can open this up?
I move to approve.
Okay. Second.
Tommy Noonan, second.
Thank you. So I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Corcoran and a second by Commissioner Noonan. Thanks very much. I'll let you guys start. Commissioner Corcoran, if you like.
I have a question. Will the old stairwell be converted into office space?
The old stairwell, let me just get to the floor plan. On the first floor level, pardon me for the noise, if you can hear the pages rattling.
Jim, did you want me to pull that up on the screen?
If you want, at the ground floor level, it looks like it's going to be, that space is converted to a powder room. At the second floor level, it just shows framing. It doesn't have anything labeled. But at the third floor level, it looks like it's going to be part of an expanded conference room. So it looks like they're recapturing some of that space to be used, but that's included in the gross calculation at the 4,400 square feet. So it's already included in the overall bulk of the building. It's just a recapturing of existing interior space.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
Yeah, thanks. That was really the line of information that I was looking for as well. Because, so I didn't actually find this. What is the gross floor area space presently?
It's about 4,500 square feet.
Okay. Commissioner Noonan, any questions?
No, and based on what the questions asked, the clarification questions and staff presentation, I thought it was worthy to approve.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the commission have any questions? And now that the screen is shared, you got to pipe up and wave your hands and such. Got to cycle through the little video monitors.
I can unshare if everybody's all fine with the plans.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody all set?
Yeah, you can turn that off.
Okay.
Thanks. It's a good function, but it does eliminate the ability to scan the crowd, if you will. So if I'm looking at Mr. Wen, if I'm
sorry, Kathy has a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Commissioner Braun.
What is the proper use for now? I'm just reading the staff comments that we're losing parking spaces.
There's a net loss of one parking space.
I'm trying to figure out what building this is. I drive by there every day. I've never seen. What's it used for? What's it being used for?
Well, right now it's vacant. They're renovating. They're putting new windows and siding on it. If you are traveling at the Five Corners intersection in Southport and go underneath the railroad tracks at the Old Post Road, you've got Arthur's Hairdresser is immediately on your left, and you start to go around a curve.
Okay.
It's the next property up on the curve across the street from the little Sasquatch Park, a couple doors down in the opposite side of the street from Equinox. It's not the corner lot on John Street, it's the next from the corner lot on the intersection of John Street.
So it's in the commercial area?
It's in the design industrial district presently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been office use since 1985. There are no tenants there presently because it's undergoing a renovation. As part of the renovation, the applicant's seeking to do this stairwell.
Yeah.
When people down in that area don't have enough parking at the building, where do they go? Can they park on the road?
To the extent that it's legal, that's correct, but there's enough parking at a 1 space per 250 square foot basis on this site, so they conform to the parking. If they have a tenant that exceeds that requirement, you know, to the extent it's legal, they could park on the street, but they have conforming parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So just looking down, on page A104, the proposed front elevation.
Okay.
All of that in the upper left-hand corner of the proposed front elevation is glass, and that is the enclosed glass staircase.
Correct. If you look at the left elevation below it,
Yeah.
you see it on the short side. That's the width. You know, it's longer. It's what did I say the dimensions were on this? I've lost my page now. My notes. It's like 11 by 13, so the 11-foot side, if you look at those glass panels, I mean, they're windows, basically. Each of those is 3 feet in width, so you'll see it in the short length. You see it, you know, it's three 3-foot windows, and in the longer length from the front view, it's 4 3-foot window lengths, which is 12 feet and change for the 13th feet. At the third floor, there's one more window because that third floor is smaller than the floor below it.
Right. So they can have an entry on each floor.
Correct.
Businesses, and then separate offices interior to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
But yes, that front entry, those are windows in that stairwell that are, you know, again, when you look at the left-hand elevation below it, you can see that it's about a third of the building length set back from the front. So it's not flush with the front of the building. It's set back a bit.
Right. Staircase kind of hangs off the side of the building like that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Parking complies and otherwise complies with our regulations. And the question is whether we think this is an expanded use for the building. And so, you know, I'm supportive of the movements to approve. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments on this? Okay, we ready to vote? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none. Any abstentions? So the compliance application is approved unanimously. The next item on our agenda is our public hearing. It's 528 Black Rock Turnpike. It's a zoning compliance application of Alfonso Camarada Jr. for 23-unit residential building pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in a residential C zone. This is continued from our last hearing on August 11th, 2020. At that time, we completed the applicant's presentation, and we had begun the public comment portion of the public hearing, which we will resume in a moment. When all the members of the public are finished with their comments, we will then go back to the applicant for their rebuttal or reply. when the applicant is finished with their rebuttal, then we will close the public hearing on this item. So with that, I don't know what the chat box looks like. I know that we had held it open in part for Attorney Green to do some things and then come back to us. So why don't we start there? Forgive me. Attorney Green?
Yes. I know Commissioner Braun has her hand up. I don't know.
Okay. Commissioner Braun?
Are we dealing with the revised plans right now, or we're supposed to be looking at the revised plans based on what Attorney Green will be presenting, or are we looking at the original plans?
The applicant submitted revised plans on the 14th. Those were circulated to the commission by Mr. Wentz.
Attorney Rizzo's unmuted if he wanted to speak to that.
There's nothing to speak to.
Okay.
There's nothing to speak to. Commissioner, do you have the revised plans in your email?
Yeah, but I see the rendering looks the same in the new and the old. I was confused about that.
Well, maybe you can ask the applicant in their rebuttal about how those plans are supposed to be viewed by us. Presently, we're in comment. Is that satisfactory for the moment?
Not really, but that's all right. I'll go. I don't want to delay Attorney Green starting his presentation. So.
Right. I mean, I'm not calling the applicant back to the podium to explain their
Okay, that's fine.
submissions, you know? Okay? So, Attorney Green, the microphone, as it were, is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Lahr Associates. Lahr Associates is the owner of the property across Castle Avenue from the site of this proposed development. And with me tonight is Peter Ambrose from Lahr Associates, who's the managing partner and owner, along with Fraser Walsh of Zuvik Carr and Associates, who's our traffic consultant. First of all, I would like to thank the commission for your courtesy in continuing this matter. It was quite productive for us, and we did have an opportunity to study some of the features of this site. I know we've been together on a number of applications recently involving set-aside developments pursuant to Section 8-30. So I'm going to try and really streamline our presentation tonight to avoid a number of issues that my client has with this proposed development, but unfortunately, in the purview or within the confines of 8-30G, and as I know this commission recognizes, unfortunately, some of those issues really are a bit outside of the jurisdiction of the commission in this context. But I can't help but mention, my client, as you know, is an attorney in Fairfield, and I know that his office window overlooks the site that is the subject of this application, 528 Black Rock Turnpike. And interestingly, over the past month, when I've discussed this matter with Attorney Ambrose, he can look out his window and he can see the actual traffic conditions on Castle Avenue. And I know he's submitted some pictures to the commission. He's provided pictures to me, and I can assure you, I know that in his initial presentation, Mr. Rizzio indicated that he drives by this site frequently, but Mr. Ambrose looks at this site all day long, almost every day, and with a busy work schedule, I mean every day lately, and with the photos he sends, I can assure you that the parking is oversubscribed. The street parking on Castle Avenue is presently oversubscribed. And he tells me that, for example, the employees and patrons, I think of Miller Nissan, for example, are stacked up down the road every day. And there's rarely a time when the parking spaces are vacant during business days, and certainly on the weekends, as Mr. Ambrose can tell you about. You know, in terms of the development, the issue with the development from my client's standpoint is it is an incredibly intense use of a site. And it's just extremely intense, extremely dense, and there can be little doubt that there are going to be traffic and parking issues brought about by this development. I know that this commission is also sensitive to the notion of quality of life, and frequently, and when we've dealt with other applications, this commission has shown its sensitivity to the notion of having at least some semblance of reasonable landscaping, some semblance of some open space on a site. And I know this commission recognizes that even in a set-aside development, there will be children, and there should be at least some green space on every site. And this site really is so overly developed, that it really doesn't afford that reasonable scale, and really, in my view, overuses this site. I recognize that this site is at the confluence of some busy streets and a busy intersection. And I also recognize that is once again an 8-30G application. And so many of those standards that we talk about when we're dealing with special permits and the like, unfortunately, don't come into play, those of character, harmony, and that sort of thing. So I can just get right to it and suggest to you that this site does offer a number of significant issues regarding public health and safety that need to be weighed by this commission, as you know, against the need for affordable housing. And once again, and as I always say in these applications, there is a need for affordable housing in Fairfield, and I recognize that, but I really think that we've made some tremendous strides in town, and we are getting there. But I think in this case, there are some particularly egregious problems that really need to be addressed. I had submitted today a report, and I apologize, but we had just completed it, and I note that there's a letter that was provided by Zuvik Carr, and I hope that, I don't know whether that was circulated. I presume that that was circulated to the commission.
Yes.
Along with some exhibits, and I guess what I would start by telling the commission that I think what really stands out is, and we'll get into this in great detail, but as the commission could see from the diagram, from the exhibits that you received, and from the report, there's a significant issue with access to this site. Now, I recognize that the commission seemed satisfied, or there was some discussion. This building is once again has a clearance underneath it of only 9 feet 6 inches. And I know that that was discussed at the last session. I will tell you that, for example, a UPS truck has a height of 126 inches. That is 10 foot, a typical UPS delivery van. And I can provide the commission with the photos of that, is 10 feet 6 inches in height. Therefore, there can be no effective delivery by a UPS truck on the site. I believe FedEx trucks offer a similar problem, moving in and out of the site, and the suggestion by the applicant that, you know, these sorts of vehicles can simply park in front does not confront the reality of this site. And I may ask, if I may, Mr. Chairman, perhaps Mr. Ambrose can chime in for a moment and offer some comment on the use of the parking space and supplement his remarks from last month, if that's acceptable to the chair.
Well, you're certainly entitled to call Mr. Ambrose as a witness, you know, and to ask him to speak in your presentation.
So I would ask Mr. Ambrose to comment just briefly on the use of the parking space in front of the site.
Good evening. It's Peter Ambrose, and thank you for allowing me to discuss my concern about the site in question. I've been a active practitioner in law from that site for over 35 years, and I've been looking out that window, not only at the traffic on Castle Avenue, but also the traffic that's on Black Rock Turnpike, which is a one single lane state highway. And I can tell every day, at certain times of the day, how intense the traffic is. The concern that I see is that there are a lot of parking spaces on Castle Avenue that have been taken up by the Miller Car Agency, which abuts our building on Kings Highway East. And the same parking spaces are also being used by the residents of Black Rock Turnpike in the three-family homes that across the street from the proposed site on Black Rock Turnpike. There are tractor trailers that park there quite often. I've sent photos of the tractor trailers that unload vehicles and also park there at night. This weekend, there was a large tractor trailer that was there all Saturday and most of Sunday morning. So my concern is the intense traffic in the area. If one travels north around my building and heads up to Black Rock Turnpike, those cars exiting Castle Avenue have a very difficult time crossing to try to get onto the turnpike. And it's very difficult at times. If you ever had that opportunity to do that, it's a challenging exit from Castle Avenue to take a left-hand turn to either get on the turnpike or to go under the turnpike to get to Staples, where that. The building also has is a location where there's a waterfall effect from those streets north on Tunxus in the Tunxus Hill area, where the residents of those streets, Trent Street and Vesper and those streets, head south, and they get on Castle Avenue and take a right-hand turn and shoot down Castle Avenue. And they're able to get on the turnpike without to go through a stoplight. The bus traffic for the school children is heavy on Castle Avenue because it's a much safer avenue for buses to pick up children than it is on the Black Rock Turnpike. And this is during the mornings and afternoons. There's a lot of heavy bus traffic in that area. Recently, in June, there was a police study done by the police department, a call for by the residents on Benton Street, which is a small street that connects Black Rock Turnpike to Castle Avenue, almost directly behind the site in question. The residents there had attended and called for a meeting with the police department because they were concerned about the traffic in that area and the safety of their children. So my concern is real. I've been involved with Fairfield Community Services, and I understand the need for housing, and obviously that's an important aspect. But I think it's important also to take into consideration the safety of the residents in that area. And so thanks for allowing me for the opportunity to set forth my thoughts on it.
I appreciate that. What was the result of the police department's study?
They put up signs. They monitored the area for a while. And what they normally do, they do it for a month or so, a month and a half, and then they go on. But they had a traffic signal signs which alerted someone if they were in excess of the speed limit. But every month the police commission does have these traffic studies, and most recently one was done on Benton Street because of the concern. The cars go down Benton Street directly to the Miller Car Agency, and a lot of people park down there. But there's heavy traffic during the course of the day on Benton Street.
Does Miller have a connection between the dealership and Castle Ave directly? Or
in the rear of the Miller Car Agency, there is an entrance for cars to get onto the Miller Car parking lot, and cars do that. But the employees of Miller are usually just park there and walk into the service area of Miller.
So the Miller Nissan employees are parking on Castle Avenue.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, yeah.
So I didn't recall there being. Look, the Miller Nissan just underwent extensive renovations. It's probably not right. It's been a few years now, but I didn't recall our approval on the revised site and the connection between Miller Nissan, Castle Avenue, the cars to be from that lot. Okay.
If I can, in response to Mr. Ambrose's comment, if I can share my screen, I can show a photograph of the site from this past Saturday, if you enable me to share content.
All right, well, was this distributed previously? Or
It has not. It hasn't been, no.
Well, you're just sharing a screen. It's not going to become a part of the record. We're not recording any video. We're only recording audio.
Well, I can email it to Emmeline also. So I don't know. It's up to the commission. It's not a problem.
Well, if you'd like for it to become part of the record and you'd like for us to see it, then you need to email it to Ms. Harrigan.
Okay. So first, why don't we, I'll try to do that while we proceed here. So I think it would be, I would like to call Mr. Walsh and to make a presentation to the commission, I think, at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Fraser Walsh of Zubik Carr and Associates, and I guess initially, Mr. Walsh, good evening. I would ask you to just tell the commission a bit about your education, qualifications, and experience. I note that we have provided a resume to the commission, but I think for the benefit of the public, if you could just briefly highlight that, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, Attorney Green, thank you very much. Members of the commission, appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this evening. Just to start off with, making sure you all can hear me okay.
We can. It's a little bit light, but just keep your voice up, and I'm sure we'll be fine.
All right, sounds good.
Oh, that's much. There you go.
All right. Zubikar has been providing site civil development and traffic engineering services in the state of Connecticut for over 30 years. As a member of the civil engineering community, I've been a professional engineer now for well over 20 years. Worked on a number of site development projects similar to this around Connecticut. Attorney Green has asked us to appear before you to offer a few concerns over some potential unsafe operating conditions created by this project. So I'm assuming, Attorney Green, we should just roll right into the letter that we prepared?
Yes, if you could go through your letter that has been provided to the commission, I would greatly appreciate it.
Fantastic. And as you suggested, instead of spending too much of your time, I'd like just to focus on a couple of the items that are presented in that letter that you received today, I understand. focusing on items 1 and 2.
Mr. Walsh, would you like me to share that?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
And again, just summarizing, if you've had a chance to take a look at that letter. Item 1 really focuses on site access concerns related to trash collection. Attached to that letter, Emmeline, there's a couple exhibits, or what came with that. Yeah, there you go. A couple exhibits that we prepared that show what a standard trash truck would have to do in order to get to the site. We understand that there might be roll-out dumpsters that would come from the trash enclosure seen. Emily, if you don't mind moving over to one of the 2 site exhibits. Yeah, over on the bottom right corner of the site plan, you'll see the trash enclosure. We understand there might be roll-out dumpsters used or contained inside that trash enclosure that would be rolled out when trash collection happens. The purpose of this exhibit really is to describe what that truck would have to do in order to get halfway into the site in order to pick up that dumpster. As Attorney Green offered before, there's a clearance issue under the building, so they really can't roll onto the site completely, pick up the dumpster with forks, drop it into the back of the truck. They'd be hitting the bottom of the first floor. So our understanding is that the rollout dumpsters would be collected at the front of the trash truck and lifted up over the truck, as I'm sure all of you have seen. What that does is require the trash truck to sit out there in the westbound lane of Castle Avenue. So this first exhibit describes what that trash truck would have to do should they have approached the site from the east. They'd have to swing out, and Emily, if you don't mind, can you zoom in just a little bit so you can see the trash enclosure and Castle Avenue? There you go, perfect. So you'll note that the trash truck has now swung from the westbound lane across the center of the road to the eastbound lane in order to make the turn. Those dashed lines describe what the turning ability of the trash truck is in order to make it into the most current, I understand, opening into the site. We understand the truck would then stop as shown essentially in the exhibit with the rear end hanging out across the center of Castle Avenue in order for that dumpster to be rolled out, loaded onto the truck, and then drive off. It would, of course, have to back out of that entrance in order to make that maneuver. Emily, if you don't mind flipping to the next exhibit. Thank you. Same idea, everyone, just the truck now is approaching from the west, or Black Rock Turnpike. They would come in as you would expect on the eastbound lane, as shown down here at the bottom, make that wide turn, and they get to really stop basically at the entrance to the site while the dumpster is rolled out of the trash enclosure, lifted onto the truck, dumped in the truck, dropped again back down on the ground, and rolled back into the enclosure. The truck would then have to back up to get out of that entrance to the proposed site in order to head back east down Castle Avenue. As you're well aware, that entrance, if you're coming north on Black Rock Turnpike and turning right onto Castle, sneaks up on you pretty quick. So if you're not paying attention, you might not notice that trash truck is backing up into you. So that's one of our real concerns when it comes to developing an unsafe operating condition on this site. Flipping now back to the letter, item 2, which I'd love just to spend a couple minutes with you on, speaks to those vehicles that are heading west down Castle Avenue looking to take a left on the Black Rock Turnpike. It wasn't evident in the documents that we saw that a profile had been prepared similar to the one that's in the site plan documents for Castle Avenue, showing what the sight lines would look like in the development condition as a vehicle stopped at that stop bar. When you turn your head to the right to look up Black Rock Turnpike to see cars approaching from the north heading south as you're turning left. We're hoping that, well, no, I shouldn't say it that way. We're hoping that an exhibit can be prepared to demonstrate what that condition would look like to ensure that an unsafe condition wouldn't be developed by the construction of what we understand to be a solid wall with a fence on top of it around the corner of the site from Castle heading north.
So let me interrupt you so that we can just orient where you're talking about right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So,
Do you mind heading back to one of those two exhibits, please?
yeah, there you go. I think that's, that's helpful. So, you're describing now someone, let's say they're exiting the building and they are approaching the stop bar as proposed by the applicant at the intersection of Castle and Black Rock, facing Black Rock Turnpike, and now looking to their right to determine whether there's oncoming traffic and they can, make a left or a right onto Black Rock Turnpike.
Correct. The concern being the left-hand movement. It's our understanding that there's a proposed wall there on that corner.
Okay.
Based on our understanding of speeds on Black Rock Turnpike, would need to be at least a 200-foot clear sight distance triangle. So. Okay.
And so it's your testimony that, based upon the plans that have been submitted, there's not been shown adequate sight lines for that intersection at that proposed, the new proposed stop bar.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Attorney Green, that was my attempt at keeping it brief. If there's other things that you'd like to visit on, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, I'll be with you in 1 minute. I just sent actually an email, 2 emails to Emmeline. So the first thing I'd like to do is talk to you about the turning radius.
Joe, Green, if you wouldn't mind, so that we're not excluding the applicant here. Does Mr. Rizzio, does Attorney Rizzio have a copy of what you plan on showing everyone right now?
What I just emailed to Emmeline?
Yeah, I certainly. And
he doesn't.
Well, I would suggest that it's appropriate for you to send the applicant a copy of anything that you plan to show us and members of the public on video.
I'll do that immediately. Okay, that's done. So,
Attorney Green, am I all set to stop sharing this particular screen?
for the moment, we can stay with this screen that is up. And I think the point of this, so the point of it, besides showing the turning radius and the difficulty of entering the site, in this case, from coming from Black Rock Turnpike on Castle, is another feature of this particular truck. And as the applicant has shown their intended trash receptacle, there's that fenced-in area, and typically it would be a rollout dumpster. The truck that would be coming to pick up the dumpster is one that you've probably seen now, and that it's called a front loader. And what it has is forks on the front of it. And Emmeline, I can either share it off of my screen, but I provided it to you by email. It's up to you. Either you can, it was the second email that I sent to you, Rizzio, and it's a picture of the trucks. So this is just reference for what Mr. Ambrose saw, for example, this Saturday. And you can see that there are cars parked on both sides of the avenue. And
Let's give her a moment.
no, that's fine.
Can you make that big, please?
So as you can see,
Yeah, I see that. So is a tractor trailer like that parked on the street on Castle routinely for days on end overnight, or is it just a limited times?
so that's something that I don't know. Mr. Ambrose could, I'm sure, provide that if you want him to.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Ambrose.
Tractor trailers are quite often, not every night, but quite often. Tractor trailers like that seem to park there over the night, then get on the turnpike and leave. It's a convenient place for them to park, perhaps.
Right.
But that also, other trucks which load and unload cars park there. So, I mean, it's used not only by the nearby residents, but also by trucks. And you can see from that photo on the opposite side of Black Rock Turnpike the amount of traffic that's parked there because there is a lack of parking for the individual lots. So it's an intense area where there's a lot of street parking.
Yeah, I see that, and it also appears to me that the tractor trailer is parked on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
The left. Yes.
Yes, sir. And it takes up at least a third of the road across Castle Avenue.
Yeah. No. And are these tractor trailers, to your observing, affiliated with the Miller Nissan, or are these just 18?
No, for the most part, they're not affiliated. But there are often times when trailers do unload cars in that location. I can't attest that they're Miller Nissan unloading, but would be a convenient place to load and unload. Right.
Okay. Have you ever reported a situation like this with an 18-wheeler parked on the wrong side of the street to the police department and asked them to come out and actually police this?
No, I have not.
Okay.
All right. Emmeline, if you could put up the last email that I'd sent you, which is a diagram of the truck.
Sorry, can you see the truck okay?
I can't at the moment.
We can't see anything on your screen.
Okay.
I can screen share it if you'd like.
I'm just going to close these photos real quick. Maybe it's just too much. Okay, let me just. I've got it. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes, if you could just scroll up, down just a bit and show the front loader. So that's the kind of truck that would be entering the site typically. And when it is in a position to receive the dumpster, there's a fork on the front of it. And I'm sure you've all seen these trucks at various times on the highway and on local roads. And so the forks extend from that. So what typically has to happen is the driver of the truck would have to pull up to the site, would have to deploy the forks, and the truck is actually as long as 37 feet when the forks, between 34 and 37 feet. Am I correct on that, Mr. Walsh, when the forks are deployed?
That sounds about right, yes, sir.
And the forks are deployed. The driver has to get out of the truck after the truck is stopped and has to go to the dumpster enclosure, open the dumpster enclosure, roll the dumpster out into position, and then actually pull the truck forward into the two receptacles on the side of the dumpster, and the truck then lifts the dumpster up over the truck and top loads it. And
can I interrupt you for a moment?
I'm sorry?
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
So I don't think I have ever seen a dumpster, a trash truck like this with forks in the front that pick up the roller trash bins. I don't think I've ever seen a person get out and move one of those bins in alignment with the truck, right?
So
it seems inconceivable to me that a person would jump out of the truck and go get a trash bin that's got to be several tons, right? I mean, and push that in line. I don't understand how that would work.
I've actually, when Attorney Ambrose suggests that he's been practicing for many, many years and looking out the window, I actually look out the window in Bridgeport on a building on Cannon Street, and that is exactly what happens. The operator literally gets out of the truck. The dumpster is on casters, and if the surface is flat, the surface is supposed to be flat, and they literally roll the dumpster out of the enclosure and position it in a way that the dumpster, the two pockets on both sides of the dumpster, can receive the forks.
And one man can move a bin like that.
It's not for the faint of heart, but for the weak. But yes.
You see that truck using are usually smaller.
Mr. Walsh, you're trying to speak, but we can't hear you.
My apologies. Forgive me for jumping in there, but the dumpsters that you see that have casters on them are usually smaller than the standard ones you're used to seeing. So they're more easily maneuvered.
All right.
But the essential point is, though, that the act of positioning the truck, then getting out of the truck, then positioning the dumpster, particularly if the weather's bad, obviously if there's snow or ice, it slows down the process dramatically because the dumpster doesn't roll very well. Getting it into position, getting back in the truck, unloading the dumpster over the top of the truck, which, by the way, requires a height clearance. I believe the spec is like 25 feet on that, the height spec. But then the driver has to lower the dumpster, back the truck up, and in this case, backing it into Castle Avenue, because as you can see, when that truck is positioned, and can we go back to the either of the exhibits that we provided from Zuvik Car? That's great. As you can see, and that's where the truck, and I'm going to say headed in a northeasterly, coming northeasterly onto Castle Avenue. But as you can see, the truck is stopped in that instance, and that's before the forks are deployed. So the truck arguably could not even be that far forward, and the angle is very awkward. And in order to maneuver, the truck has to literally, not only is it covering the entire lane of travel going southwesterly, but it's into the lane of traffic coming from Black Rock Turnpike. And that truck is maneuvering back and forth to get into a position to receive, to handle the dumpster. And it's even more angle's even more acute and more difficult actually coming from the close angle of heading I'm going to say southwesterly on Castle Avenue. So what you have is a situation with a truck having to literally maneuver across the road, and you can imagine what goes on with the whole traffic situation. That is just a real safety hazard. And I want to just point out that you know, our regulations and all zoning regulations are an expression of what is just, fair, and reasonable. And I note that in Fairfield, we have a regulation that provides that, and it's 28.11.1, so it's 28.11.1, which addresses the fact that under no circumstances can parking or loading spaces rely on trucks using them, having to rely on using a road or a highway off the site to maneuver. Now, obviously, this is 8-30G, and we understand the impact on zoning regulations, but I would suggest that it really violates what's kind of found to be just, fair, and reasonable. But let me take it one step further for your purposes in this application. Mr. Welsh, you are a professional engineer, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you, in your opinion, a truck that has to maneuver like this in proximity to a major intersection with Black Rock Turnpike, and at any hour of the day or night could be conducting these sorts of maneuvers, is there a reasonable probability, there's a probability of harm that will result? And I'm not saying on the first day that this development is built, or the second day, or the first week, or even the first month, but is there a reasonable likelihood that this is a threat to public health and safety such that, in your opinion, sooner or later, an accident, a significant accident would occur as a result of this activity in trying to get the trash from this site by a truck of this kind, a front loader truck? Can you offer your opinion on that?
Yes, sir. I believe this is of a concern for safety.
And so there's a reasonable likelihood that an accident would be causing, you know, as a matter of human health and safety. That is your opinion, yes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you are a licensed professional engineer, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, and I think it doesn't, as you know, these, I mean, for the commission, this is obviously just a terrible layout, and obviously all residents of all developments in Fairfield, whether they're set aside or not, everyone deserves access to a site that is safe, that doesn't involve a risk to anyone. And this really does not meet that burden at all. Can we have bring up the other diagram as well, please? And if you could just scroll just a little bit down to show. So as you can see, the problem here is that not only does the truck, when it's stopped, cover both the entire southwest lane, but it also covers a portion of the northeast lane. But more significantly, the way the geometry works in the turning angle, and Mr. Walsh can talk to you a bit more about this, but this is a standard template. And as you can see, in order to enter this site, this truck, and you can see the distance to this intersection, this truck has to go entirely into the oncoming lane of traffic, entirely into the oncoming lane of traffic, in order to even get into this really awkward position to receive this dumpster. And again, yes.
Is that the limit to which the truck can enter that that space? It can't go any further than that, either due to radius or overhang?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Walsh.
Yes, sir. The template that you're looking at has been used by engineers for this type of design for a long time. It's a standard 30-foot two-axle truck, radius of turn at 42 feet. So we use these to understand what the vehicles will do when moving through intersections, moving through entrances like this, etc. Based on our understanding of the proposed site conditions, this is how we believe the truck will, if it's coming from like the east or the northeast on Castle Avenue, well, this is how the truck will have to operate to get into the site as shown.
Right, and specifically my question is that the limit of the space that the truck can enter the site? It can't go any further into the site either because of a radius issue or an overhang. Is that right?
The path traveled by the vehicle is shown in the dashed lines.
Yep.
The truck itself is, I understand what you're saying, sir. The truck is, the two images you're seeing are from that standard template. So the nose of that vehicle might be able to move another foot or two into the site, but once the arms are deployed and you have to roll a dumpster out of there, it's not going any further. So it will hang out over the center of that Castle Avenue.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Now, this, unfortunately, I didn't think of this till now, but perhaps we can, I don't know how to compare it to the drawing that shows where, for example, the access to 1100 Kings Highway, Mr. Ambrose's building, but certainly this truck would certainly be crossing very close to the exit and entrance to Mr. Ambrose's building where cars are trying to safely exit and enter. And certainly the commission can recognize the difficulty with cars parking on the street and even completing a maneuver like this. And the time involved in the operator getting this dumpster and dumping it and returning it is obviously significant. So this is not just a situation where a truck is pulling in and backing out. I mean, there's a lot going on here, and it takes a significant, I mean, in terms of traffic travel, it takes a significant amount of time to perform the maneuver, emptying the trash bin or the recycling bin, which would operate on the same principles. And by the way, with the recycling bin, that would require moving both of the dumpsters out. So that's even a longer period of time. And I just, you can't, this just can't be justified as, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that it represents a very significant human health and safety hazard. You've had an opinion offered to you by a licensed professional engineer. I note that the applicant has not offered an opinion that this is safe, and that no licensed professional engineer for the applicant has offered an opinion that this is a safe way to access the site for this particular use, for this utility of trash and recycling. Obviously, we have other significant concerns regarding this, but I think that this shows that this layout simply doesn't work, and it is a function of this site being overdeveloped. Obviously, I think the commission could find that if this building were pulled, I guess, further to the southwest, then arguably a dumpster could be enclosed deeper in the site along that boundary line to the right, and a truck could pull fully into the site if there was a more generous opening for vehicles entering and leaving the site. And frankly, if that were done, the applicant, I think this commission can recognize that if the building were, once again, reduced in size, reduced in the number of units, obviously there would be a need for less parking. There could be an area on the northeast boundary of the site there that would not be covered by building. And you could put the dumpster enclosure deeper in the site. You could have an entrance and an exit there, arguably, and you could accommodate a situation where a truck such as this could fully enter the site, could come to a dumpster straight on, open the dumpster enclosure, receive the dumpster without having to be maneuvering in the middle of Castle Avenue at any hour of the day or night. So, I mean, one suggestion would be for this commission to make a finding on that, you know, this presents a safety concern and that a reduced development would provide a development that is safe and does provide adequate access. I note not only for trash removal and recycling removal, but, you know, let's be real. I mean, people moving in and out of this site and the thought that you have to park up the road in parking spaces with a moving truck on the street, and that this site cannot even accommodate, I mean, something that is obviously going to happen from time to time with this number of units. Obviously, we all recognize this modern world, and I don't know how many times I can say from my experience, particularly over the past several months, the number of packages and the number of times that, you know, my kids and my wife are fairly active with Amazon and receiving packages, and this site just doesn't accommodate any of that. And it's just an unreasonable and overdevelopment of the site, regardless of who's going to live there. And once again, everyone has the right to a reasonably scaled, safe place to live. I really don't have anything else to offer. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has, and I know Mr. Walsh is as well. And I really want to thank you for your, you know, your patience and for your for hearing us. And I want to certainly want to thank Emmeline Harrigan for her great work in running this group.
Yeah, thanks. So I do have a question for you then. In the letter that was submitted, there is a third point about an incorrect elevation in the sightline profile along Castle Avenue. And I don't know that there's been any explanation of that in the presentation here tonight or by Mr. Walsh, unless I missed something.
We can address that.
Yes, sir. Joel, Attorney Green, go ahead.
As I understand it, well, why don't you, as I understand it, it is not, well, Mr. Walsh can expand upon this, but as I understand it, the height of the elevation for the proposed sightline distance is not shown. Is that a crude way of putting it?
Forgive me, let me get back to the mute button here again, Fraser. Zubikar. Our intent with that comment was just to recognize that there might be an inconsistency with the information shown on the profile. So I'd offer that the applicant revisit that profile.
All right. Well, it's fair to ask the applicant to double check that, but you're not rendering an opinion here that the incorrect elevation somehow impacts their calculation of sightline distances that they've put forth.
No, sir.
Okay. Very good. And with that, I don't have any other questions. Ms. Harrigan, if you could stop sharing so that I could see video.
Can I ask one question before you, Commissioner Francis?
Yep, I'm going to the video, and I'm gonna ask for folks to see who wants to be heard. And
before you take this off.
Yeah. Oh, before you take it off. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Commissioner Francis, go ahead.
The space 23 is right here.
Where?
It's right here.
We can't see where you're pointing.
Oh, see where the dumpster is?
Yeah. And
space 23 is to the left of this. It's
to the left, looking
exceedingly tight, isn't it? When the prongs are out on the rubbish truck to have to take that dumpster and do a 180-degree turn and with a parking space right there.
And
It's
if I may,
unbelievable.
if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to illustrate
No.
this distance between the curb of Castle Avenue and the wall of the dumpster, that area that the truck is turning around, that's just 12 feet wide. And the truck is over 30 feet long, between 34 and 37 feet long with the fork down. So that'll give you some context as to kind of the distances involved. So that's 12 feet. The width of that area between the dumpster and the curb line is just 12 feet.
Yeah, and of course the height is only 9'6", so it can't go in any farther.
Well, you can see the edge of the building.
It's wonderful that we have two entrances now, entrance, exit, but this is still a problem, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other members of the commission want to be heard on this? Or the question, Commissioner Braun, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I didn't miss it, but did you already discuss point number 2 in your memo?
Length.
Oh, I thought that has to do with fences and sightline, not the garbage truck. Point.
Yeah.
No,
Specifically for his opinion about the sightlines at the intersection of Black Rock Turnpike and Castle, where the car was approaching the new proposed stop bar and looking to the right up Black Rock Turnpike. And I believe that is point
2.
I don't know if he really talked about it. I mostly heard him talk about the garbage truck. Are you saying that there's not adequate sight or that they need more information on fence heights and whatnot?
Mr. Walsh?
That's exactly what we're saying. The applicant provided a profile, site distance profile down Castle as part of the application package. We didn't see one for the stop bar at the intersection of Castle and Black Rock Turnpike. As Commissioner Wagner described, when you're a car sitting there at the stop bar looking to turn left on the Black Rock Turnpike, what does your sight line look like to the right? The question being, it appears based on the elevations that there might be some walls with fences on top that would limit your view to the right as you sit there at the stop bar.
Or as you pull out, even if you pull out straight to get across from Castle.
And point 4 about the handicap, could you just elaborate on that? I don't think we covered that.
So as I understand it, the issue there is that the state code requires that for handicap access that the users of those spaces should not have to cross behind other spaces, regular parking spaces, in order to get to access to the building. I'm glad you brought that point up. So that's obviously, and I'm remiss in not getting to that, but that's obviously another health and safety aspect of this project, and that, once again, someone who needs to use that handicap spot would have to pass behind other parking spaces to access the building.
How many handicap spots are there? Because there used to be not enough, so they must have added some. It said when the police did their code review months ago, which I'm sure has been fixed, it showed 2 handicap. That wasn't enough for a 24-unit building, but then I think they reduced the units. There's 24 bedrooms, I guess. Do you know how many handicap spots there actually are in here?
As I understand it, there are 2, but I just want to call up and make sure that the revised plan shows that.
I see 2 on the revised plan.
Yes, as I understand it, it's 2. I see them,
It's a 23-unit building with 24 bedrooms. That's my understanding of the size. I don't know if that's adequate or not, but that's a different question than what your engineer is talking about.
correct. So I see 2 spaces. I'm looking at, I'm looking at drawing, in the revised,
Second scale plan. Oh, wait a minute. Revised 814.
yeah, I see it. The revision is, I see it. I believe it's A 1.00.
Oh.
As I understand it, there's 2 spaces.
Yeah, okay. And I also had a question about the dumpster. One of the code reviews said the dumpster is too small. Do we know the size of the dumpster, if it's adequate for a building with 24 to, say, 30 to 40 people living in it? I know that where I live in Sunny Ridge, it's always overflowing, and it attracts vermin, and it's actually a hazard, in my opinion. People throw trash on top of the dumpster. How does that affect anything you're talking about? If the dumpster is not big enough, does that make a difference? Or does the enclosure change if you make the dumpster and the recycling bin bigger?
I suspect that there's some sizing on that. I'm sure that the applicant thought about that, but as I understand it, that would just cause there to be a higher frequency of collection, and therefore that would increase the hazard if the dumpster is inadequate. But under any circumstances, each time that truck has to come, that truck is spending a lot of time sitting in the middle of the road.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner have any questions here? Yes, Commissioner Levy.
If it's feasible for the trash pickup, if the trash truck were to remain parallel to the building, let's say on the northern side of Castle Avenue, let's say facing west to east, and then simply rolling the dumpster out so it's perpendicular to the front of the truck and collected in that fashion. So in other words, the truck would not have to make a turn, it would remain parallel, and you simply roll the dumpster out and align it with the forks.
I don't know that. I don't know if that would forbid other trucks and other cars from entering and leaving the site, obviously, for that period of time. Yeah. And it would involve using the road for that purpose.
Yeah. Well, it would involve the road regardless. My question is that feasible, practical, or does it present the same safety problems in your opinion? Perhaps Mr. Walsh could address that.
Commissioner, it would seem that that truck would be sitting there in the lane of traffic longer while you're rolling the dumpster and the recycling bin out to align them with the forks.
Okay. So it could be done. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We also have to look at what the change in elevation or the grade change is from the street up to the track enclosure to see whether or not you'd have a runaway dumpster.
Well, as I understand it, Mr. Walsh, you can speak to this. There has to be an apron entering the site, and I suppose the engineer for the applicant can address this, but there wouldn't be, for stormwater and the like, the site would essentially have to be level coming out to the road, because pushing a full dumpster up and down that hill and over a lip. And I think there has to be, I don't know, Mr. Walsh, you can speak to the apron design, but I think trying to roll a dumpster up a 2-inch lip at the opening of the driveway and then up the apron itself probably would be unfeasible, particularly if the dumpster's of any weight. Is that?
It would seem to be a lot of work, and the likelihood that forgive me for speaking about the operations of a trash truck, but in the sense that it's more likely that trash truck is trying to get closer or as close as possible to the dumpster to minimize the amount of rolling.
And you'd also, the way it's laid out in the plan, the recycling dumpster is behind the regular trash dumpster. Therefore, whenever the recycling truck came, the regular dumpster would have to essentially sit in the opening to the site for the entire time while the trash hauler gets the recycling dumpster, rolls it all the way out to the street, empties it, while the other dumpster is sitting in the middle of the access to the site. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Commissioner Levy?
Well said. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other members of the commission have any other questions for Attorney Green? Okay. Very good.
The retaining wall?
I'm sorry, who, is that Commissioner Francis?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Francis, go ahead. You're on mute.
Mine says,
We can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay. Your mute is flashing. Okay. You're now unmuted.
okay, mine says mute. The wall and the retaining wall and fencing that appears to be above it, I'm not very clear on whether this exists or doesn't exist. Has the town engineer looked at it or will she? Because we're really not able to judge whether the line of sight exists that should. If this fence above the retaining wall exists.
So we're free to consult with our town agencies and the staff at TPZ after the hearing, and before we and while we consider the matter and an executive session. I think the point that the applicant has raised is that the Attorney Green has raised is that the applicant has not proffered even a sightline. They have not proffered any evidence that that adequate sightlines exist at that intersection. So I don't know if that helps your answer. It wasn't really a question, but yeah. I think that's the point.
Yeah, having received it at 1:30 today, which is very difficult.
Commissioner Francis, do you have any more questions for Attorney Green?
No, just I'd like the sightline reviewed.
Well, okay. Thank you. Any other commissioners have any other questions for Attorney Green? All right, very good. Thank you very much, Attorney Green. Yes, you need to say something else, or are you waving?
Just briefly, it occurred to me in that question regarding the front loader truck staying on the street. If those are parking spaces, then chances are, based on Mr. Ambrose's testimony, there are cars in those spaces at various times and frequently, he says. Therefore, a truck, the refuse truck, in response to Mr. Levy's question, would have to actually stop in the travel lane, stop in the actual travel lane. So if it's a parking space, then it could be filled. And if it's not a parking space, then a refuse hauler would have to basically park in a non-parking space. And that doesn't make any sense.
Well, what perhaps you missed from the applicant's presentation was that they need to eliminate certain parking spaces on that side of Castle Avenue in order to provide for adequate sight lines.
Understood.
Okay, so, no, that in their plan is not going to be a parking space. They need to eliminate it in order to provide adequate sight lines.
And therefore, if the trash receiving truck is parked there, then the sight line is inadequate.
That is, I think, the argument.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any other questions? Okay. Attorney Green, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that the next the next member of the public that signed up here is Desdi D. He's still with us? If so, Ms. Harrigan, if you could unmute. And maybe
am I heard?
Maybe I'm misreading.
Yeah, it's Desdi.
Desdi, thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize. Desdi.
Yeah, Desdi DeRoche is the name, and I'm a tenant at 525 Black Rock Turnpike.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
So I think at the very least, I'll be repeating a lot of what's been said, but I think there's been like a lot of good points brought up here. So, for example, at 525 Black Rock Turnpike, that's the third floor unit directly to the northwest across the street from Black Rock Turnpike for this proposed building. We have 3 units in this house with no driveway, anything like that. We just utilize just on-street parking, the limited parking that's available to us. So I know there was a picture shown when we were discussing the truck and the trailer. There's 3 cars that are parked behind that trailer towards Black Rock Turnpike. Typically, my car would be seen as well there too. So on average, especially overnight, all along our side of the road, so the 525 side of the road on Black Rock Turnpike, there are cars lined up and down. There's even a car that parks like in its yard, evident by the tire tracks that are there. I mean, that can be viewed by anyone because of the lack of parking. So for me, I have to park across the street, as well as my partner who lives with me, and then also our neighbors park there. So there's that, and then the stuff that we already discussed about people parking at Miller Nissan, and then what hasn't been brought up from what I heard was the bank traffic, right? There's always people entering the bank because the entrance is only off of Castle Avenue there.
Which bank?
I think it's like some savings bank. It's to the south of the proposed building across. I think it's Westport Savings Bank. I forget the exact name, but it's kind of on the corner of where the traffic circle comes off, Kings Highway, turning into Black Rock Turnpike and Castle there, if you could envision that. So, I'm parking there. We already have loaded traffic there. We also have loaded parking on our side of the street, and then also on the other side of the street, our downstairs neighbors usually are relegated to that side of the street. And I think in that picture, it was, evident that there's already a lot of parking being utilized. So my main concern is there's going to be a lack of parking. Aside from the increased traffic and limited sight line and all that stuff that is already existing. So taking away more spots, which is what I saw in the proposal on the north side of Castle to accommodate this building, further burdens, what is already burdensome in terms of parking. And so I guess that would be my main concern. And then I know there's a lot of talk about this garbage truck situation. I know in kind of the documents that were shown, it shows the garbage truck utilizing the whole road. Well, you have to envision too, if there's cars parked at least on the south side of the road, even if there's, the north side is taken away in terms of the parking, it's already going to be a difficult maneuver for that to happen. And I'm like risking my car getting hit by a garbage truck because of how difficult it is to get in and out. Even in the best case scenario, which sounds to me like what would be required to make something of this size work, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the many reasons you guys have mentioned here today, and aside from this parking issue, So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments. We really appreciate it. Are there any other members of the public that wish to be heard? I'm looking at the chat and I don't see anyone else having checked in. We do have a number of boxes. I just want to make sure that I get everybody who wishes to be heard. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Ms. Harris, you agree there's nobody else in the queue?
Jim Wentz for the record, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I might suggest is to unmute the folks that are calling users just to check them.
I think that's a good idea. Unmute everyone, and then just in case it's not one. Ms. Harrigan, just let me know when you're done.
I don't think, it doesn't sound as though any of the other callers want to speak.
That's fine. That's fine. I just want to unmute those members, members of the public, and just, have an open mic here to see if anyone does want to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Is this Mr. Petway?
Yes.
Would you like to speak in the public hearing section?
Yes.
Okay, if you could name and your place of residence.
Just stand by. Ms. Harris, please mute everyone else so we don't get feedback. And then, sir, just name and address for record.
My name is Derek Petway. I live on 25 Sawyer Road in Fairfield. Just wanted to say that I'm for the new development. It seems like a perfect location. It's near transportation, like the train station, and it looks like a development that will give everyday people, hardworking people, an opportunity to move to Fairfield.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Calling user 2, did you want to comment? Calling user 6, did you want to comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, folks. My name is Jeff Angeli. I'm a homeowner here at 80 Soundview Avenue in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'd like to go on record stating that I am, in fact, in favor of this project. I think that this project is going to allow for people with modest incomes to be able to enjoy the Fairfield lifestyle that would not necessarily be so affordable for them, if not given the opportunity to live in an apartment building like this that has more affordable rents. We've got the rents going up, the apartment buildings going up at the train tracks, which are going to be in excess of $300 to $3,500 a month to rent, which for the average person with a moderate to median income is out of their price range. But to have, a building like this that has more affordable rent, which let's not discount the fact that this building is also going to add to the grand list in the tax basis for the town of Fairfield as well. So, to increase the tax revenue for the town and provide affordable housing for people to enjoy Fairfield, I think is a step in the right direction to the cultivation of our community here in Fairfield.
Very good. Thank you very much for your comments. Anything else?
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Harrigan, does that do it?
I think that does it, because I think Mr. Kasudas is with the applicant.
He is.
And I believe that are all the folks outside of the board and the,
That's fine. We've given ample opportunity for members of the public to speak up. We've unmuted all lines, and we've, called people to action. So if nobody's chiming in and signing into the chat box, then I think we've done it.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. So with that, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing and turn it over to Attorney Rizzio for the applicant's rebuttal. Do we still have Attorney Rizzio?
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Yep, you're on.
Unmuted now?
Yep,
Got me?
fine.
Got me? Okay, great. As you spoke before, Chairman, in the beginning, there were revisions made based on the comments to our plans, based on the comments of the Commission and concerns they expressed at the last meeting. We committed to getting them done in a matter of days. We did. We also got them before all of your departments, and all of your departments responded promptly for tonight, which probably is why Mr. Green spent an hour just on garbage trucks. But let me get you through this part of the presentation. And then Mike Galante will rebut the traffic engineer comments. But let me take you through the changes. As you know, if we could put the site plan in the line real quick. So for the Commission's, it's coming up there. So the Commission expressed some concern about our traffic. Oh, not that one. Oh, you know what? They forgot to show the smaller garbage trucks. We can get back to that. I think they just picked the largest garbage truck they could find in the country besides this building. Oh, no, just our site plan, Emmeline, the revised site plan.
Sorry, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, that's not the revised one. Sorry, I think the revised one is probably on the website, right?
I think that's email. Email citation to the Commission.
It's on our webpage, and it's in our, and I don't know if you are.
I'll get there. Sorry. I'm going. Sorry about that. I think I had the old one on my, ready to go, and I didn't load the new one. I apologize.
No problem. Do you want me to start at least discussing a little bit, Chairman, as while we load this up? Because I think most people look at it, but I just wanted to make it clear for the record that the Commission had some concerns with regard to internal circulation. So what we decided to do was have an entrance on, let's call it, the east side of Castle Avenue and an exit on the west side of Castle Avenue. So you'll now only proceed in one way through a 24-foot wide driveway aisle, go circulate under the building, through past all the parking, and then you'll come out on the west side of Castle Avenue, and that will be a right turn only, which really is not very unusual for this area. If you go along Kings Highway, where you have a divider down the center of the road, most of the buildings that have driveways that go out of the Kings Highway cannot cross Kings Highway. They actually have to make a right-hand turn and then figure out how to get to the other side, either to make a turn or an alternate route. So one of the things that the Commission felt very strongly about was making sure that we could safely enter and exit the property. It's greatly improved. We also reduced the number of public parking spaces that we have to leave. You know, by doing what we're doing here, and you'll see Mr. Galante will take you through his report. There are 3 public parking spaces that are out in the open that, to achieve our sight lines, will need to be replaced. As you've done in other projects, we've agreed to replace them with three spots on our building. So you'll basically be replacing three parking spots that exist on the street with 3 covered spots in our garage, which I think is actually much more of an improvement for the neighbors that seem to be concerned that there's not enough parking. So we will be not actually taking away any parking spaces from the public. We revised our traffic report to note that we also updated our civil plans. There was one of the concerns that we had, I wasn't sure it was expressed, but it was always a concern of mine, was that the building was originally our eastern property line. The building staircase sat on the eastern property line. I advised my client that it'd probably be a good idea to move it off the property line, even though it would be permitted, for the ability to construct, repair, do anything else, and also give some distance away from our neighbor's property line, so as to not basically create a wall along the property line. So we moved we turned the staircase and moved it 5 feet to the west. So now there is, in effect, a 5-foot setback where the staircase exists toward the east toward our Castle Avenue neighbor. We felt that was important. What it also did, even though it required us to, as you can see, let's see, that's the internal. You should see a site plan also that'll show that the staircase has been moved. So the staircase has been moved. Now, what we did was we turned the staircase more vertically, so that you can see the staircase there on the it's about 10, 15 feet from where the dumpster location is. And we turned that staircase so that would create a 5-foot setback. What happened there is we ended up with parking space that was the turnaround space. So we had to alter our parking spaces. We basically, when we had only one way in and out, we had a turnaround space, if you can recall. That is now an actual parking space. And by turning the staircase more perpendicular to Castle Avenue, we eliminated one of the spaces. So, but we still remain with the same 23 units with 26 parking spaces. One of the things that's important to note is that we have 22 one-bedrooms and 1 2-bedroom. If you look at, you had basically the same, almost 1-to-1 over on 78 Uncle Road, which was permitted. 78 Uncle Road, I believe, I wrote it down somewhere, but they had 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms. So we basically almost have a parking space per bedroom, which I think is unprecedented in the applications that have been before you, certainly with regard to the 8-30G applications. I did submit, Joel emailed some evidence in about the size of dump trucks, garbage trucks. We did email in to Emmeline, which hopefully she'll post a little later, other garbage trucks that are used in smaller operations and in tighter sites. And also the site plan for 78 Uncle Road, which this commission passed, where we had the exact same height, 9.5 feet, and that we had the same, and that they had their dumpsters located in the rear of the property, with no way for dump trucks to get in there and load or unload. However, keep in mind, we plan on using smaller garbage trucks. We have 20 feet, about approximately 20 feet from the curb to our building. We don't feel that maneuvering and emptying and garbage would be any different than any other residential project that you've previously approved. For example, our client built a 9-unit project on the corner of Kings Highway and Howard Court, which is a beautiful project, been very successful. Same thing, they will roll out the garbage trucks in that case to the street, and garbage trucks will pick them up and take them. That was actually approved for your special, not by 830G, but through your special permit process. What I'd like to do now is, and then also want to make sure that the commission understands in putting our revised plans through, and I think that this is in fact what a smaller garbage truck could look like to handle smaller residential areas. We are not, Mr. Green looked for the largest possible dump truck or garbage truck that he could find there. In fact, even in his own submission, he showed a smaller garbage truck above, but for some reason that related to the presentation. We don't believe the handling of the garbage in any way will create a safety hazard or any kind of concern for the neighboring public.
I appreciate that. Do you know which kind of truck is going to be engaged to the garbage at the building?
It's going to be something of small nature that will just, pick up on a regular basis. No different than picks up in all these residential neighborhoods. I know I've lived on the old Post Road. We had a smaller dump,
Forgive me. I don't want to hear about what's on the old Post Road or on all these other properties. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward question. And if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. And that's fine.
I can't tell you. I think it'll be one that's sized up appropriately and will not create any kind of hazardous condition.
All right, but you have to understand that, there are differences in garbage trucks navigating what are otherwise units, developments, buildings that comply with our zoning regulations, with setbacks and with other, that are not as intensely built and dense as the building that's being proposed here. So, I don't know that you can just dismiss that as just like any other building around town and all these other residential developments all over town. When you've got the testimony of neighbors across the street, photographs of the streets being lined with cars, and the turning radius that's been, explained to us. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to give you the opportunity to explain, okay, and not be dismissive, which, quite frankly, it seems like you are.
Well, Chairman, in all fairness, I looked at a couple of the approvals that this commission's given out recently. Once with regard to an 8-30G being 78 Uncle Road, and the other one with regard to up on Kings Highway, 675 Kings Highway, where you have a similar type development, a dense residential spot with parking underneath, with the same kind of garbage collection issues, and they're all handled safely, or at least this commission found them to be safely in those two instances. I will let Mr. Galante discuss the refuse and operations of a garbage truck on the location so that you can feel comfortable, as you did in these other applications, that this will not create a hazardous condition.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Galante?
Thank you. Mike Galante, Odyssey in Hanover, and I'll just take a little bit of time just to discuss onto the comments that were provided earlier tonight by Attorney Green and his consultant, and then I might just spend a minute or two on our resubmission just to put it in the record as far as our reanalysis with two driveways into the site itself, which comes from our last hearing, which was very productive. I think you would agree. And we developed a plan to, respond to that concern. I'll just touch on 3 of the 4 items that were brought up in the letter. The last one was about handicap spaces, and I think we answered that. If not, we'll try to respond again. First one, and we talked about trash trucks for quite a while tonight, which will surprise me a little bit. But at our last hearing, we made it, I think, very clear that our trash pickup will be curbside. And not to talk about all over town, but, curbside pickup for trash is somewhat typical. It's curbside. The suggestion that we would have 30 or 37-foot long truck pull up on the apron of a driveway into a development with the rear of the truck on the street, I'm a little surprised, quite frankly, that someone would make that suggestion. We never suggested that. We would not do that. And as Attorney Rizzio suggested, we would have a smaller truck serve in this type of building. It's not uncommon for that to happen.
Can you just describe what you mean by curbside? As it is described in the plan presently, there is a fenced-in area. Right, a fenced-in area where there are 2, large dumpsters, one for regular and trash and one for recycles.
Correct.
Can you just describe for us what you mean by curbside, as opposed to what Attorney Green has described as the truck with the forks and the above, the dumping the whole thing above the front of the truck?
Yeah, I can't imagine that would happen. But curbside pickup, in my opinion, and I hope everyone would agree with me, is a trash truck is pulling up along the curb, along the sidewalk near the driveway of this development, which would be the entrance driveway, and it picks up the refuse. Now, those they're on rollers, I would assume. They're rolled out and ready for the truck when it comes. It's not that unusual for a truck to have that stuff rolled out first before it gets there. The truck is not pulling up on the apron. It's not blocking the sidewalk. It's not hanging out on the street. It's curbside. So, as you mentioned, there are a couple parking spaces in front of our site that we're actually removing to provide sight distance. There's nothing wrong with that space, if you will, that was a parking space becomes a spot for a refuse truck to pull up and pick up trash. That's not a unique thing that happens throughout the town on a regular basis.
Mr. Galante?
Yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Noonan.
What's
catching my attention, though, is, as far as curbside pickup, you have individual trash units that you put garbage, just take a single-family residence, you put your own trash in it, you bring it outside, you put it in there, you wheel it out. Here you have a dumpster. So I assume you're not wheeling out the dumpster. How am I? That's half the reason I think. At least I'm confused now. Is it being curbside? Is you have a dumpster? So how is that curbside pickup?
Well, I've seen places where they have a maintenance on the site itself that puts it in a roller type of trash wheeler type of thing, brings it to the curb, and is ready for the truck to pick it up. It depends on the carting outfit that does it. Whoever has that contract. They're not all the same with forklifts in the front of the truck itself. So when I suggest curbside, which is what we said at the last hearing, we didn't suggest that a truck of any size would be pulling in on the apron of that driveway, which wasn't there at the first hearing. It was grass area. That's what I'm suggesting.
So when you're saying dumpster, you're not. I'm thinking the traditional dumpster with, again, the prongs going in and up and over. You're saying it's an area for garbage to be placed in what I'll say is, these big wheelie containers that you'll see more in a residential single-family residence area.
It might be bigger than that, but that's the same idea. And again, I can't speak for whoever might be declining, but that's the intention.
But it's fine. Again, I saw a dumpster on the plan, so I understand where Attorney Green was coming from.
Okay. All right, so, there was a lot of discussion about that, and apparently I really haven't answered your question, but it's curbside pickup. We're not blocking the road. We're not having a 37-foot long truck or a 30-foot long truck. Those turning templates, we use them all the time. They're very conservative. Can you turn in a tighter radius? Yes, you can. Was our driveway designed for a truck of that size to pull in and not go under the building? No, it's not designed for that. We do not want a truck on the curb or on the apron, and you certainly don't want a truck or an emergency vehicle under the building. A fire truck is not going to do that. A FedEx truck, you know, they stop at the curb, they run in and drop, in this case, drop it off in the lobby, a package, and they run out. That's a 30-second, 1 minute drop-off activity. It's just very typical. Even if you provide a spot on site for a FedEx or UPS truck, they're going to pull up at the curb and run in. That's just what they do because they're on a time program to get things done. Second item, and we can always go back.
Excuse me, Mike, can I just add one? Can I just add one thing, Mike, Chairman? If the commission, Chairman, I just want to add, the commission has such a concern with regard to curbside pickup. Our client will agree to a condition of approval that they will retain a garbage hauler who would pick up the garbage in nothing larger than a pickup truck with a cab, so that you would not have to worry about these large rolling pickup trucks that would roll out onto the street. We would accept that a condition of approval, which would basically alleviate this whole issue where I've sent an email into you showing you the type of pickup truck that these haulers use, and we would do that as a condition of approval. Mr. Ambrose,
and I appreciate that very much, Attorney Rizzio. It's just that the way that you frame that, though, is, you know, if we have such an issue with XYZ, we're just asking the questions. We're vetting the issues. And initially, when I asked you if you could describe for me how the trash hauling was actually going to occur, you said, well, I'm not sure, right? You didn't think it was going to be this big truck, but it could be a smaller truck, and so on and so forth. But
right. So what I did was
if the applicant is now positing that they would agree to a condition of approval that any trash hauling would be only done in a truck no larger than a pickup truck, then so be it. That's great, and I appreciate that. And so now we've heard that, and we have that now for the record.
I just wanted, before this one continued to go further on, and I know once we close the hearing, we can now offer a condition, so I just wanted to make sure it was part of the record, so if this was a concern of the commission, as an alternate, the commission would have the ability to impose that condition, and I'm offering it would be self-imposed.
Very well then, thank you.
Okay, can I proceed?
Yes.
Item number 2 was in reference to a sightline from someone exiting Castle Avenue and looking to the right up Black Rock Turnpike. If you recall, before this property was under clearing of the property, the house was removed and the vegetation was removed. Coming out of Castle Avenue, you really couldn't see that Black Rock Turnpike at all. That vegetation was removed, as you know, and the house was removed, and any construction on the property itself, the building has been pushed back as much as possible, and any landscaping in that corner will not interfere with sightlines. That being said, the sightline is better than it was in the past. And number 2, I did have a very long discussion with Laura Pooley about this early on. And honestly, she didn't ask for an analysis, but we talked about what we can do to improve it as much as possible. And there was a couple things. One was, as mentioned, the building's pushed back as far as possible. The landscaping is low enough so it doesn't distract from someone coming out of Castle Avenue. The stop bar is pushed up towards Black Rock Turnpike because, as you know, it's set back very, very far. We're providing a crosswalk at her request. And the motorist now stopping at that stop bar is closer to Black Rock Turnpike, but certainly back far enough. There's an improved sight distance. Is it a sight distance that matches the book? No, but there are Castle and Benton, which is the block in the other direction on Castle. That resident on that corner put up a very nice fence on the property line, or hopefully on the property line. That blocks sight lines coming out of that side street. There's also a very large tree in that corner that's in the town right-of-way that blocks sight distance. And I'm not pointing at other people and other things, but this is 2 public streets. We're improving it as best we can. What we do provide is a very detailed profiling analysis of the proposed driveway coming out to Castle Avenue, which is our obligation, certainly. And we meet those standards. And that also includes removal of a few parking spaces and replacing those parking spaces on site itself. So the item of sightlines looking at Black Rock Turnpike was certainly addressed months and months and months ago, probably last spring, actually. And we didn't ignore it. We had that discussion with the town's engineering department. And I might add, and Attorney Rizzo could certainly touch on this, I think all the departments have reviewed this site plan and have signed off on it. That including the 2 driveways, an entrance only and an exit only. Now the entrance provides left turn and right turn moves into the site, which was a benefit that everyone felt was better for the neighborhood. Now, if you look at the traffic in the neighborhood, if you will, and in this case behind Miller Nissan, we're adding 2 cars on Castle Avenue during the peak hours at that Benton Street intersection. So we've reduced the traffic, if you will, site traffic going around the block, which I believe I had mentioned last time with the 1 driveway and the turn restrictions into the driveway itself. The exit drive is still a right turn only, and I do recommend that because it's close to the intersection, but it's far back far enough based on my discussions with Laura Pooley, and I don't mean to pick on her, but she has written and reviewed and so on. And what we've done as far as access, layout, moving a stop bar, and so on, meets her questions. And I think we've responded to her questions, so we've done that. So we didn't forget the sideline looking up Black. We certainly don't forget the sideline looking on Castle to the east, if you will. So we've addressed those concerns. And that actually brings us to item number 3, which is the profile that was not prepared by us, but by the team, as far as showing the site distance from the proposed site driveway, looking to our left, coming from the east on Castle Avenue. I believe the elevations are correct on the profile. Even if they're not, let's say they're off by a foot or 2, as suggested by the reviewer, the sight line distance we need to match the 19 miles per hour is still met. It's just a lower elevation in a straight, flat road, and our site frontage will obviously be cleared and regraded as needed, and we will have that site distance. So, I don't think it's wrong, but if it's off by a foot or so, as suggested, we still have site distance that is required. And the last one, which was about the handicap space, I believe someone did answer that, so I'll leave that alone unless we need to chat about it a little bit more. And if I may, Chairman, I'll just touch on for 30 seconds. We revised the traffic report, an updated addendum, if you will, dated August 12th of this year, and it provides the analysis of an entrance driveway only and an exit driveway only. We redistributed the site traffic on area roads, so we maintain level of service. We have minimal increase in delay. Someone may say, well, there's a lot of traffic on Black Rock Turnpike. Yes, there is, state highway. But as far as the impact of this development, anywhere from, I think, 17 to 23 peak hours can be accommodated on the roads itself. I mean, we didn't forget anything. We provided the analysis that's appropriate for the town. And in this case, the state will look at the crosswalk because it's within the state right-of-way, if you will, at the intersection. If they want to see these traffic reports, they'll certainly have it in their hands. And I'm done for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Galante. Mr. Rizzio, Attorney Rizzio?
Yeah, Chairman, I'm just going to conclude this because honestly, I think the record established itself here that we have taken all of your concerns and issues, and I believe we addressed those. We have put them together through the departments. There's a letter in the record. I don't know if I need to read these or if the commission has seen them, but there's a letter from Gary Wickman from the police department that said, Jim, I'm pleased with the revisions to 528 Black Rock Turnpike.
Part of the
had no issue with
You don't need to read each one of those into the record. They are part of the record.
I just want to make it clear the commission understands that every department, including Phil Higgins, the fire marshal, sent a letter to Mr. Wendt that stated he's reviewed the plans and that he satisfied all of their concerns. And then there's a letter by Laura Pooley, dated August 21st, that also said all of her concerns were addressed. She also, just because there was a discussion last time about what was meant by green infrastructure, her last paragraph talked about the fact that given the way the site was being developed, there really wasn't a way that to satisfy green infrastructure here, and it was not suitable at this development. So I think that was kind of an open-ended question, which we asked Laura to address, and she addressed it in her letter dated August 21st. She had no problem with drainage. She had no problem with the driveways, and she thought that the layout was much improved, and she found the 2 separate driveways acceptable as designed. Once again, it seems to me that the only issue that Mr. Green had, which is I find incredible, and I agree that I'm not dismissing it at all, was how our garbage truck was going to access the building. we agree that as a condition of approval, we will agree to, that the garbage only be serviced by a hauler who uses a pickup truck, to pick up the refuse from our site. With regard to the on-street parking, I've been up and down that street. Maybe occasionally there's a big, truck out there, but Mr. Ambrose or Attorney Ambrose, on the police commission, certainly would have the right to have the police commission say if he's worried about them parking there overnight. They have the right, as you know, the police commission to put up 15-minute signs like they've done on other locations. They can put up 1-hour signs. They could put up no overnight signs. So there's certainly the ability to control the parking and the misuse of parking. For example, when a tractor trailer parks on the wrong side of the street and takes up spaces that are available for the public. We, as I stated, are not going to be taking away any spaces from the public. As Mr. Galante put in his report, there are 3 spaces that we need to establish our lot lines. Those spaces will not be put inside a garage. So the public will have the ability to have public parking in a safe location where they don't have to worry about being sideswiped or anything that could happen on that street. Those 3 spaces will be made available to the public and still give us our 1 space unit, as this commission has approved many other similar type situations with that type of parking ratio. Keeping in mind that this site only has 22 1-bedrooms and only 1 2-bedroom. A lot of the other similarly situated have multiple 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, units. Finally, in conclusion, I think it's important to note that pursuant to Section 8-30G, that the commission has the burden to prove that there is that the decision is necessary to protect the substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider. Such public interest must clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing development. In this instance, and with this presentation and this record established, I clearly do not believe, and none of your departments believe, that there is any health or safety concerns that would outweigh the need to have this application passed pursuant to Section 8-30. The record is clear, and any concerns that this commission has expressed, we believe we satisfied. And additionally, any concerns that the neighbors brought up tonight, I believe we satisfied, because we're willing to accept the condition that our garbage be picked up by way of a pickup size truck hauler only. For all those reasons, I respectfully request this commission grant this application. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration in hearing this application. I think it's a fine application, a fine use. It's a tremendous transitional location, and it's a situation that really will support your affordable goals. I must make one last notation that there were 2 issues brought up by Mr. Reber. He wanted to see that our affordable housing plan designated the actual units that are in our plan. That affordability plan has been amended and supplied to the commission. I can give you the actual units. All units number 102, 104, 106, 201, 203, 303, and 305. So we will be supplying 7 affordable units. And additionally, the other concern that Mr. Reber had was that he wanted to see that the person responsible for monitoring the affordable and certifying to the affordability complaints, that it was a person and not an LLC. And we have designated Mr. Alfonso Camerata, and that is also in the report. I hope we tied up all our loose ends, and I hope we satisfied all your concerns, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt, can you confirm that you received a revised affordability plan? I didn't see that I didn't see that in circulation before the hearing.
I can resend it. I believe it was an attachment to the files that were included with the revised site plans. I don't have access to my email as I sit here on my home computer, but I can check that tomorrow to make sure. I believe it was, but if it was not, I will recirculate it if it was, or submit it to you for the first time if it wasn't, but we did receive it as
No,
part.
I just want to confirm that you received it and it's a part of the record before the hearing closes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Attorney Rizzio. Any commissioners have any final questions for Attorney Rizzio? Yeah, Commissioner Brayman.
Yeah, thank you. This could be for Attorney Rizzio or Mr. Galante. With respect to cars coming from Castle Avenue westbound onto Black Rock Turnpike and the issue that was raised about the sightlines, is it your position that any deficiency in sightlines is not the result of the proposed development, but the result of existing site conditions, or do I have that wrong?
I'll answer that. Mike Galante, Hardesty in Hanover. Any sightline issues out there are related to physical conditions of that intersection, whether this development is there or not. Former development, future development, it really doesn't change. Better, I believe we are improving it by pushing back on vegetation, the building corner, pushing the stop bar up. We've adjusted as best we can with the physical conditions of that intersection.
Thank you.
We can't change the intersection.
Well, you could propose changing it. Anyone else? Commissioner Braun. And then you, Commissioner Corcoran, I got you.
Can you just detail again the number of parking spaces that you now have for people who live there versus the public on site, and how many you're removing from the public in front of the building? And also, is one of those still being removed in front of the neighbor's house or not?
Again, Mike Galante, we're proposing 3 parking spaces on Castle Avenue, 1 space in front of the neighbor's house, yes. We are matching that by 3 parking spaces within the site itself in the new, I'll call it a parking garage.
And so how many spaces then will be dedicated to people who live there inside the facility?
23 spaces. I'm sorry, 3 spaces, yeah. 23 spaces, yes. 1 space per unit.
And how is that going to be enforced? Because this came up with some other applications.
Well, the management of the building will certainly take care of who's parking in the parking lot. There's 3 spaces that are for the public will be signed accordingly.
So people who live in the building will not be able to park in those 3 spots, but people outside the building will?
Correct.
Will there be signage on the road to direct people in the public that they can park in the building if there's public parking there?
No, we couldn't put
No.
Couldn't put a sign in the town's right away to point to private parking that has 3 spaces for the general public.
And the spaces, why does the space still have to be removed in front of the, I think it's the Quito residence next door, if you're only removing 3 now when you were removing 6 the first time around?
Well, we went back and revisited the actual conditions out there on the street on Castle Avenue in front of the site itself. And the width of that road is only about 29 or 30 feet. And the 2 spaces on Castle Avenue closest to Black Rock really aren't parking spaces. When you put the car on that corner on that side of the street, which is our site frontage, you travel 6 feet to 4 feet. It's simply not a parking space in a travel lane. For that reason, we removed it as a parking space. And keep in mind, you typically don't park within 25 feet of an intersection. In this case, within that stop, from a stop bar, which is part of the intersection.
So you're actually removing from the public the same distance that you did in the first application. You're just calling it fewer spaces now.
I don't think anyone I was going to say in their right mind, but I don't think anyone would park in that space on top of that intersection with a lane that's only about, I think it's only about 12 feet wide in total. A travel lane is typically 11, 12 feet wide, so you wouldn't have a parked car and travel in 12 feet.
You're removing all public parking, starting with the Cuevas property to the corner of Black Rock Turnpike now, just as you were before you revised the plan, right?
There would be no parking.
No parking from Cuevas to the corner of Black Rock.
In any case, we're taking away a space in front of the neighbor and providing 1 space potentially for him in the parking garage. And
I'm just trying to clarify, there's no difference in the amount of distance that people could park before you revised the plans to the amount of the length of the road that they could park now after you revise the plans. You're removing the same linear distance now that you were before from public parking.
Potentially, there are no signs out there today saying no parking here to corner, for example, but it's highly unlikely that someone will park where
I'm not asking that. If you could just answer what I asked, I appreciate it.
we're removing any potential for parking along the site frontage, which is the same length as before.
Thank you. The dumpster, there was a question in the code review from the police, or somebody, I think it was recycling solid waste and recycling, that you need a larger dumpster. Here's my concern. Where I live, there's less than 20 units with a dumpster, and it's a big truck that removes it. And I'm very concerned that you're going to have horrible overflow. You're going to need a bigger truck. And once that calamity happens, there will be a bigger truck because of the health and safety of people living in the facility as well as nearby, with piles of garbage piling up because the dumpster is too small and you need a bigger truck to access it. So I think it solves it by putting it as a condition of approval. And I don't know if a larger dumpster has been provided in the plans. All I know is solid waste and recycling determined you have too small of a dumpster and now you need a larger dumpster. Has that been addressed?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me just add. What matters is who manages the building. I have a 30,000 square foot office building that we've never had overflow dumpster in the dumps because the garbage man comes there every day. We'll agree to a condition of approval that a pickup truck will be there. Pickup truck may have to come 3 or 4 times a week, but it will come and remove the dumpster so that no trash gets accumulated. If there's a problem, you'll have Mr. Ambrose directly across the street looking out his window. He can call and claim for blight. We have no intention. Our properties can be professionally managed, professionally maintained, and we will have as adequate garbage service to make sure that the dumpsters are adequately sized and then adequately serviced. So yes, if you live in a condominium association where you have one dumpster and they service it once a week, yeah, there's a good chance you can have overflow. We will monitor it and service it as necessary.
What is the size of the dumpster that you have there now that you're planning on?
I'll have to ask the architect. Mr. Serrano, have you sized the dumpster? Mr. Serrano is here somewhere. He has to be unmuted.
We didn't size the exact size of the dumpster, but we think that the 2 dumpsters we have are larger than as on the drawings when we went to the code enforcement meeting. And we do think that they're large enough. And as Ray said, if need be, we can pick up trash every day of the week, which would not be that uncommon in this kind of facility.
So what size is the dumpster that you have in the plan?
We don't have an exact dimension on that dumpster right now. I'm sure I could get it for you.
And there will be a recycling dumpster as well in the same location, right?
I'm sorry?
There will be a recycling dumpster as well, side by side with the garbage dumpster.
Right, there'll be 2 dumpsters. The space we have is approximately 9 or 10 feet by 18 feet. So it's a pretty good sized space to be able to fit 2 good sized dumpsters in there.
What's the typical size of a dumpster that you would put for a 24 bedroom apartment building, which I would think would generate more garbage than an office building?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's different types of garbage. So, but in office building, you're going to not get as many pickups. So if we do daily pickups or even 3 or 4 times a week, then it'll minimize the amount of trash that's going to be there. We can guarantee you that we're not going to let trash overflow the dumpsters. I mean, I know my client, and he's not going to allow that. And if anybody sees it, I'm sure somebody will report it, and it'll be taken care of.
The applicant is not the one managing the building. There could be anybody managing it in the future, right?
Well, no, it's my understanding, and Ray can correct me, is that Mr. Camerata is going to be the one managing the building.
Well, that's not chiseled in stone, and you can't make him do it for the rest of his life. So it all depends on how good somebody complies with that. But I suspect that in the future, when the dumpster is found to be inadequate, there'll be a bigger dumpster and a bigger truck that'll have to pick it up. And I don't see how that can be handled on a condition of approval. Once the garbage is there, you have to deal with it one way or the other.
That is not true, Commissioner Braun. Once you conditioning approval on the size of the truck that can pick it up, we would have to then just service it more regularly. That's all. I do not think the dumpsters, even if he has to pick them up every day, he's got to pick them up every day. Once you condition it on the size of the truck, it has to pick up the garbage. It's a question, it's going to be a question of proper management, just like it is with every other project that comes before you. It's just that Mr. Green, in a situation, this is the only issue that has not been, or certainly, I think through code compliance, it wasn't an issue. It's an issue that it's the only issue that has arisen with regard to this application. From your departments. But every other application you have issues with regard to the size of the dumpsters, and I've been before you many times, the size of the dumpsters, the amount of time the trash is picked up, where it's picked up, and I don't ever remember spending as much time on trash as we have tonight. But I can tell you that we're willing to accept the condition of approval that it be picked up by a small truck the size of a pickup, and that it'll be regularly serviced to ensure that there be no overflow of trash.
Ray, if I can just add one thing. So a typical 8-yard dumpster, which is approximately 6 feet by 6 feet, holds 96 garbage bags, right? So if everybody in that building, there's 23 occupants, 23 apartments in the building, if every one of those empties their garbage 3 times a day, that will fill the dumpster. That's highly unlikely.
Okay. I think we've beat this issue up pretty considerably. Commissioner Braun, you can take testimony here and the arguments for what they are and the proposed condition of approval and all of the plans and everything, and we can talk about that in our executive session when we consider the application. Okay? Any other commissioners have any other questions for Attorney Rizzio, the applicant?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran was next in the queue. Sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Corcoran. I forgot to call on you next.
Hey, I noticed something in the plans I've never seen before in anything that's been submitted to us, and that is that in some of the apartments, the living areas have no natural light. They have no windows. And it occurs to me that this is a possible health issue. I don't know if the building department has specifically addressed this or if the architect has. I'd be interested in what you have to say.
Sure, I'm happy to address that. The building department did see these plans that were set up exactly that way. And I mean, the code doesn't require you to have a window in a living space. It requires you to have a certain amount of light and ventilation and everything else. So we'll have to do some additional mechanical ventilation because of that. And what we will probably do is put some glass high-up transom windows in the living space, being that they're only 1-bedroom apartments. You're not going to have multiple people living there. The most you probably have is 2 people in an apartment, and they'll be the only ones in the bedroom. So we'll put some transom lights in the bedroom to let some of the light go through. But it's not a code violation to not have a window in the living space.
Right. Okay. To me, it occurs that it might be a health issue. I think there are countries that have that kind of regulation. But I also wondered if you're saying that you might put some features into the building that are not in the plans you gave us?
Well, they'd be transom lights, so they wouldn't normally show up at an elevation because they'd be windows that are up high along the ceiling. We cut our floor plans at a 4-foot height, so if there's something above that, it typically will show up as we get to do interior elevations of cabinets and interior walls and things like that. It won't show up on a floor plan like that. But these drawings went through all the departments, including health, and as far as I know, there's no regulation in Fairfield or in the state that prohibits us from having a living space without a window.
Well, I'd be really interested in seeing those transoms installed.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Corcoran. Okay. Any other members of the commission? Commissioner Braun?
For handicap spaces that are required for 24 bedrooms or 23 units, and I asked because on the police code review, they said two handicap for 24 units is inadequate, not as 23 units, is two handicap spaces adequate?
Right, so, yeah, so I'll answer that question. As you know, the police department has signed off on these drawings, on the revised drawings, and they didn't mention anything about that. But the state building code, which is the building code that Fairfield uses, states one handicap parking space for every 25 parking spaces. Does not at all relate to how many apartments, how many bedrooms, how many people, purely based on number of parking spaces. It's 1 to 25, 2 to 50, et cetera, et cetera. It also states that one space has to be a van adaptable space or a van accessible space. That's why the two handicap spaces are actually different sizes, one size for a van and one size for an automobile. But the two handicap spaces will suffice up to 50 cars.
So two is what's required and two is what you have. That's your answer. Okay, thank you.
Right.
No, actually, that's not what he said. Two is not required. It's one for 25. They have two. And
26 parking spaces, so we passed the 25, so we're required to have the two.
All right, that's, anything else? Okay. I don't think I see any other hands from others that haven't spoken already. All right. So with that then, I will close the public hearing on this item, and no other business, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.